Welcome to the Stars Align, Dramas and Dreams podcast, where the infinite sky meets the starry world of dramas. We're your guides through the cosmos, from heart-stopping queer love stories to straight dramas of the unexpected love.
And every unforgettable moment in between that make us swoon, laugh, and cry. And, of course, we'll sprinkle in a little stardust along the way.
I'm Nixie, your drama enthusiast ready to break down the best, and sometimes most chaotic, storylines, filming techniques, and the worlds we can't stop obsessing over.
And I'm Cyrus, here to delve into characters, themes, and symbolism that invoke emotions that resonate with us in powerful and lasting ways.
Each week, we'll explore the stellar journey of love, identity, and connection, one drama and one dream at a time. Today, we orbit the series Satellite, where we discuss everything a series has to offer. Our satellite this week is orbiting My Golden Blood.
So, gather your stardust, find your spot under the stars, and let's dive in.
Let's begin by taking a look into the stars, where we take a closer look at the synopsis that captivate us and the stars on and off screen who make every moment shine. Join us this week as we stargaze into the captivating world of My Golden Blood. But before we can stargaze deeper, we must start by discussing the basics. My Golden Blood is a 2025 Thai BL produced by GMM25. This show can be watched on iQIYI, and it has 12 episodes with a duration of 48 minutes, which makes it approximately 9 hours, 36 minutes long.
The synopsis reads, 20-year-old Tong possesses a rare and powerful type of blood irresistible to vampires. He is told by everyone around him that he has hemophilia and must avoid anything that could risk spilling his blood. However, Tong breaks that rule and becomes a server at an event on behalf of his best friend from the same orphanage, Tongkla. That's how he meets Mark, the 200-year-old heir of the Amtutakun family, and host of the event. Mark tries to take Tong away from the other guests, but an accident happens and Tong is cut. The sweet scent of his golden blood stirs chaos, awakening the thirst of vampires, including Nakan, a 250-year-old vampire and another heir of the Amtutakun family. Mark must therefore do anything to protect him from the others and also from himself. Source: GMM-TV, edited by My Drama List, adapted from the novel My Golden Blood by Darwin.
That left out so much information. Or at least fudged some of it.
Why was it necessary to put their family name? Not once, but twice.
I think we had this discussion earlier. The family name is there to show that it was a powerful family. And it can't just say, before you say anything, it can't just say Mark from a powerful family, because in society, that does not work. What family? You just didn't like having to read that.
Synopsis? I can have my own qualms.
Okay. No, fair. They don't use his last name that often, so therefore it was kind of crazy that it's in the synopsis, yet hardly mentioned in the series. But back to what I was saying, this synopsis leaves out quite a bit of information for how it actually plays out, which, to be fair,
Yeah.
I think that has to do, I'll give it the benefit of the doubt, due to the fact that this is kind of Tong perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, he does meet technically Mark for the first time at the event, and it does trigger everything else that follows. So in Tong's point of view, that's accurate. It's just, as a watcher point of view, we all know that Mark was there when the man was a baby. So, like, technically, Mark's always been there, and it just happens to be at this event where Tong runs into Mark. So, just saying. That information was kind of left out. And also that Nana was also not mentioned.
Not once.
In the synopsis. Not at all. And she plays a very significant role in this story. Which is fair. I could foresee that synopsis-wise, like writing-wise, to like leave the allure into like what happens with her. You know, more of a mystery because she's not involved in the synopsis, unlike Nahan, who kind of plays the red herring kind of scapegoat as a villain.
I still hate him, but like,
yeah,
he's like not like the villain, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
Spoilers.
They're in an episode that's dedicated to the series. I think they're fine with spoilers. But if you're not, yeah, spoilers.
Sorry.
But moving on. The stars that guide My Golden Blood shine brightly. Let's meet the cast and crew who make it shine. The main couple is Josh Weir, who plays Mark, and Flu Gawin, who plays Hong. The director was Ak Sarot. The cinematographer was Narapong Park DC. He was also the cinematographer for Jin Y Season 2. Sirilat Dampa was special effects makeup artist. She has also worked on The Paradise of Thorns, My Dear Gangster Oppa, and more.
And while there were a lot more talented people who worked on the show, we unfortunately do not have the time to talk about everyone. But we would like to further highlight some of our thoughts on the cast and crew.
It is interesting how short the cast and crew is. So what made you do it that short?
Because there was several producers of the show, and I didn't want to make Nixie read out all of them. But Off was one of the producers for the show, interestingly enough.
And you didn't add them?
Because there was several. I think there was 2 or 3 producers.
That's fair. That's fair. This list would have been a lot longer had you added them.
Yeah. So just for sake of time.
But moving on to other cast and crew that we did not mention up above, but would definitely like to bring out more of. We got Neo, who I think we've said before, and I'll say it again, shows up in those random places.
Random places. Always the comedic relief. Only for him to die this time.
Yeah, that was wild, but we'll get into
that was
that
rude.
later. I also got AJ.
One of the tweens.
And then we got Mond, who is actually mentioned in the synopsis, or his character is at least. So that's exciting. Also, I think one of the first times I've seen Mond is
since Not Me.
Villain character.
Oh, as a villain character? Yeah, that's fair.
Which was kind of sad. Kind of sad.
Yeah. But, like, talking about Not Me, we get a Mond Gawain reunion. They both played in Not Me, which is very fun.
You just wanted to bring up Not Me.
And Gawain, but yeah.
Fair enough.
If Gawain has no supporters, I am dead. I love him so much. We've set the stage, and now it's time to delve deeper into My Golden Blood. Spoilers ahead as we start with The Story in the Stars.
Some stories are written in the stars, others are written by the twist of fate. The Story in the Stars explores the plot in detail, diving into character arcs, dramatic climaxes, and the conflicts, both necessary and unnecessary, that shape the narrative. I guess we can start with the beginning. And just, like we said back in the synopsis breakdown section, talking about how the synopsis seemed to be written in Tong's point of view. So therefore it leaves out the literal fact that Mark practically, I can't say raised, but he was there throughout the entire childhood of Tong. Saw this man grow up, gave him gifts.
Yeah.
His family funded the orphanage, yada yada. Quite
the whole 9 yards.
Quite wild.
Wild, absolutely. And like the synopsis goes into like, oh, he decides to protect Tong. No, that's like his entire purpose.
His literal reason for pretty much existing for the most part.
That is the reason why Thana turns him in the first place. Like, it is literally his entire purpose as a immortal being. Wild.
My curious question is, how many Golden Bloods did this man go through and never once realize that they disappeared after 21?
Yeah.
But speaking of that disappearing, because like there had to be several, right? Because he's 200 years old.
Yeah.
And so I'm assuming the event in which Nahan caught on, I would like to assume before Mark got turned, but that could be wrong. It could have been after,
Who knows?
Well, we don't know the timeline for that.
Yeah.
But back to what I was saying, I'm pretty sure most people, maybe not, but I know we definitely both caught on very, very quickly on the fact that I kind of clocked Hana possibly definitely being the actual villain of the story.
Yeah, I didn't trust her for a second.
Not at all. Because, like, one, her behavior was all wrong. 2, why are you protecting something that is so valuable to the vampire community? Like, yeah, I guess technically they end up doing the same thing she did in terms of protecting. That's a lie. But, in terms of that perspective, protecting in the end kind of thing. But still, there's a lot of things that just don't add up to her protecting the Golden Blood. And like you said, why 21? Why was, because like her being so adamant about like, just turn 21 and then everything will be fine. And I was like, okay, but that doesn't make sense because like, does like the blood change or something?
Blood types don't disappear, bitch.
Exactly. I was like, that's not gonna make sense. Like, logically, his blood cannot change after 21. That makes zero sense to even be a thing. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it is fiction, could have been a natural thing, but it just didn't make sense. And so it was like, there's so many elements in this that was like very suspicious with
Mhm.
her behavior, or how like she was trying to be caring, but it didn't feel authentic, which is
Yeah.
clearly obvious for obvious reasons.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And like I couldn't even wrap my head around the possibility
Mhm.
that her it not being authentic was because she's a vampire, no emotions. But if that's the case, then why are you protecting the golden blood if you have no
Yeah.
care regard to the emotions? Which only turned to prove out that we were right. You know, she didn't care about the golden blood, so she just wanted the golden blood for herself in the end. So as for the actual person themselves, no care. But it was like that was so that actually felt pretty darn obvious. I will say on the other hand, it was kind of relief that Nahan ended up being the good guy. And I will say still an obvious one, because I do think pretty early on I had a feeling that Nahan was not the actual
Yeah.
villain. But I will say it did heavily lead that direction for long enough that I was like kind of debated, okay, maybe, but like something's still kind of off about you being this bad guy.
Fair enough. Still don't forgive him for Tonko's death. That was fucked up.
No one probably will forgive him for Tonga's death. I honestly
I knew he
definitely
had to
have less
die.
hate for him in the end,
That's fair.
because like I kind of just chopped it. I didn't chop it up as in like I kind of forgived him. I want to say that because like it was still crazy that he ended up killing Tonga. But I will say, on the other hand, I kind of chopped it up to the fact that they are vampires. They're not supposed to have emotions, which so therefore their caringness isn't really there. But theoretically, they're not supposed to.
Yeah, it's fair.
Also, I don't think he directly killed Hongla. I think he shoved him and used too much force that shoved him straight
Yeah.
into the pipe. So therefore, I can't be like he technically didn't kill Hongla. It was an accident and it wasn't intentional, but it did kill him. So therefore, it was kind of like you little like you just did that, kind of thing. And so yeah,
Yeah.
mad in the moment, but when an actual analyze is kind of done, it's kind of like, hey, well, I don't think he intended to kill
Like, that
Tonga.
wasn't the intention, it was the result, and therefore,
Mm-hmm.
like, fault can be, like, swayed, but you still like, he still
Still
died.
did it. So no, I don't blame you. And I don't necessarily forgive him for Tongla's death, but I definitely had less resentment towards him in the end.
That I think that's fair, yeah. Even though he was very adamant about, like, "If this doesn't work, if we can't kill Thana, you gotta kill him, dude."
I was
Like,
just gonna say, I don't know if that falls under character yet or plot, but yes. Speaking of that, and I've said this off podcast before. Yeah, honestly, no. I guess this could play a little bit into plot. It is a little character as well, but we're probably gonna deep dive into the other characters more than him,
yeah,
anyways, because he's just it's Nahan. So,
yeah.
but yeah, I agree, because I said it off podcast, just our regular conversation, and I'll say it again. Watching that last episode and seeing the scene where they had to come up with a method to somehow not let her foresee what they were going to do, and that there were two weapons against her. I
Mhm.
am curious, though. I will actually, before I break into that, but I'm curious to know why she didn't know there were two when that was clearly presented that there were two of those. But yada
Yeah.
yada, it is what it is. But I made a comment off podcast talking about how I think, honestly, I would not have been surprised if the outcome, one, it happened clearly because he really was in the opposition where he could not stab her in the heart. So that's fair, because like you can't really, jab someone from while you're on the ground basically
Yeah.
that easily into the chest. So like getting her into her leg, fair enough. Fair enough. But he did make a comment where he was like, if this goes wrong, gotta kill Tong. So like I would not at the same time would have been, surprised if that action, regardless of the situation, happened, because he was fully set on the fact that Tong more than likely just needed to die. Because he seemed very adamant on the idea that there was no out other than killing Tong because of Tana's power.
Yeah. And, like, technically, Mark did kill him.
Yeah,
He
technically.
just brought him back. Nahan didn't say anything about not bringing him back, so
Yeah.
that's
And
fine.
I don't know if I should admit this, but
You got to now.
as a watcher standpoint, I actually may have, unfortunately, been laughing at the scene when Mark returned back to Tong's lifeless body and we just see Gawain's face and he's supposed to be a corpse and man's tweaking with his his eyelids. I'm just seeing them move. And like normally when you're playing dead, it's your breathing that's the problem. I just thought it was unfortunately funny that it was his eyes, which makes sense. When you try to fake sleep, that's oftentimes, if it's not your breathing, it is your eyelids that give away if you're fake sleeping, especially as a kid, you know, because you're not controlling their movement. They're involuntary a lot of the times. And so, but I kind of may have been laughing at that scene. I was like, no, it's like, stop, this is serious. You cannot laugh. And then kept laughing. And I'm like, I'm sorry. It was a good scene, though. I will say, slightly cringing at the turning point when he literally had turned. But still enjoyed it nonetheless. I was literally thinking about the fact that you made a comment in our Jen episode where you were like, it's like when they get a little too real, that's it for me. Is keep your mouth away from me. And all I'm sitting here thinking, watching this, thinking, this series got a little too real for Cyrus.
It did. Like, I don't know. I didn't like that. Another thing I didn't like, going back to when Mark kills Thana, his hand goes completely through her. Wasn't a fan of that. That's a no from me.
I remember watching that scene and just watching Mark struggle to kill her because he had developed what he thought was a familiar, like a family bond with her. And her just like, oh my God, like obliterating that in her just the rudest way. And just like completely diminishing that. And then for Nahan to hold her down and be like, do it, just freaking do it. And then he does it out of pure anger and like just disappointment in the whole thing in her and not like seeing them as like, not seeing him as her son or anything like that. And then I just remember him doing it and then seeing where his hand ended up in the shirt it went through. And it was gray, not the white dress she was wearing. And just being like, you killed both of them, not her. Both. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of holding on to like the smallest thread that maybe he missed his heart and it just went through hers, which I did make a mental comment on the fact that, yeah, sure, that's how that works because they're totally the same height. I may have made that comment because I was like, their hearts would not have aligned. Let's be real. At least I don't think it would have. He kind of looked like he was off-centered.
Had to be crazy.
Yes, he had to be really direct behind her, honestly, for that. And I think he was slightly to the side, so that's why I was kind of like, I don't think he held her completely dead center. But whatever, I digress. And anyway, just remember seeing that and being like, oh my gosh. But I will give it to him. I'm glad he was okay with that death because after he got stabbed and Mark realized what he did, Nahan was like, it was kind of like, thank you, because I can finally
honestly
go see my person.
The sentiment was finally death. Thank you.
Like, man wanted the death. I think he also just wanted to complete his getting rid of Thana, so he got both.
Yeah.
Thana and his death literally at the same time.
Unfortunately, but yeah.
Yeah, I was going to come back to him too after I was talking about that. But there are so many plot elements to the story that were wild.
Yeah.
Like, maybe taking a step back and how, like, he finds out about vampires, you know, the poor man just doing his own life, just wanting to live his life, being like, I'm not sick, I'm perfectly healthy, and I'm just gonna try to go through life. I'm gonna secretly go behind my friend's back and go to his job as him, which is wild, because do they not ID people? I swear to God.
Photo ID?
Non-existent. And then he shows up and then ends up, it just goes south. It goes so wrong so quickly. Because not only does he get caught by Mark being there, and Mark's like, oh my God, you're going to get your butt killed being here. You're not supposed to be here. And doesn't like say that to him, but mentally does.
Yeah, it was the vibe.
Which is pretty, he was dead on if that's the case.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then from there he just spirals into finding out about vampires. Man tries to run away so many times. Like, come on, have you not seen vampires in TV shows? And have you not? I mean, I guess he grew up in orphanage. Who knows what he saw as growing up as a kid or what stories he heard? But you would think you'd have some common sense.
You would think, but especially an orphanage that is like funded by vampires, they actually probably do keep that on lock.
That's true. That's fair. I could see that too. But it was like, dude, have some common sense. You're not getting away. You're not.
No.
And then he ended up putting up with them, and then they ended up getting closer, and then super close. They're romantically close.
Maybe
were
a little too close.
Maybe a little too. There were a lot of times that I don't even know, man. I'll never forget the one time, because I think this is a good spot to put it, that in episode 6, when Nakhon had controlled what was her name?
Mina,
the little precious little girl. And he had her controlled, and this little girl was choking out a full grown ass adult Tong, who I don't know how she would even be doing that. She's not a vampire. She was a little girl. I don't think him possessing someone meant there was more strength than there was in the actual thing. So for starters, how is this man struggling against a little girl? I'll never know. And then he escapes the bedroom, runs and tries to get out of the living room, like out of the main door, and it's locked. And I just remember my immediate comment while waiting for her to round that corner, because we all know horror movies, she was gonna round that corner at some point. But my immediate comment was, run, she's coming for your ankles. And then next thing you know, she comes around the corner on the ground, and I was like, I was joking. Did literally mean for her to come for your ankles, my dude. I'm so sorry I jinxed you. And then he gets attacked by her. Luckily, gets saved. But that was such a wild, funny scene to have happened.
She made this comment to the point where she sent me a voice recording of before I even saw the episode, and she went I know you haven't seen it yet, but you'll know the scene when it gets to it. But my first thought at this scene was, run, she's coming for your ankles.
Was I wrong?
No, to the point where in my written notes for this series, I literally have, oh, truly for the ankles. You truly meant it literally.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God. I mean, no, she wasn't actually aiming for the ankles, but she pretty much did. She was
at the right height for it.
She was the perfect height for it. I don't know. I just thought it was really funny. And that's definitely not the only time we've made the most ridiculous, outrageous comments in the series.
Oh, no. This series was ridiculous.
Do we want to talk about episode 1?
A little context for what's about to go on. This series started airing while Nixie was up visiting. So we actually watched the first episode together. And if you think we're chaotic apart, put us together, it's insane. But
A, we were chaotic. B, it took us pretty much 2 times as long to watch it for the amount of times we had to pause it and how many times we made comments just on the first episode.
Yeah, it was insane.
One, we were cringing so hard, and 2, we just had a lot to say.
Yeah, we paused, I think 2 or 3 times just for Nixie to rant about logic. So that's fun.
And then I know there were several times where I don't remember what scene it was in episode 1, but I know it was me because I had control of the remote. And I remember playing it and then pausing it immediately because I was fixing to cringe just because of the moment it was on. I think it was in the scene when they were meeting each other, or I think maybe it was the finger thing scene or something like that in the after the blood hole thing happens, maybe right before the logic happened, but like I just got the tension just really hit, and I was like, nope, okay,
I think
nope,
that's fair.
okay, and I remember pausing it and like playing it so many times, and I don't remember how your reaction was, but I remember you kind of being like, "Are you good over there?"
I was expecting it, honestly. I watched enough.
Me?
I watched enough shows with you. I know how you react.
I could not. I was cringing so hard in the first episode. I think the first episode was definitely the hardest one to get down. The rest
I
of them was
agree.
pretty fine. I had no problem with the rest. But the first one was just I loved it, but it was because like I love cringe stuff. When I use the word cringe, I actually do mean it like in a loving way because I don't know why, but I love cringy things. But I was like I couldn't. It was so difficult. But moving on, we had so much to say.
There's a threshold of cringe that's acceptable for Nixie, and episode 1 surpassed it.
Oh yeah, I struggled. I paused, played so many times in that one, which was fortunate for me because I had the controller, but unfortunate for you because I had the control, the remote. So, but though some of our comments about the episode 1, Cyrus, you want to bring those up?
Sure. You want me just to rapid fire them?
Maybe some context on a few of them. I think it's the third bullet point. No, the very first one that we had.
Oh, first bullet point immediately. Basically, Bella plus.
Okay, that's not the one I was thinking of. The second bullet point. But what scene was it referring to?
I don't remember. I truly don't have context for this one. I think we were just kind of riffing off of like the vibe of the show, and like I don't remember who said what. We have a good idea of who said which, but we basically at the same time went to make the same joke where like we both went a different type of, and I'm pretty sure I said eating him out and Nixie said sucking him dry. Just from like the immediate sexual attention these two had.
I wish I knew what scene it was, but yeah, we were both like, we both went dirty, and we don't often
We
go
don't
dirty
do that.
But for this episode, we really did, and it came through. And it was hilarious that we have a similar mindset because we both pretty much said the same thing, just two different forms.
Wild. And like
very wild.
In like the same vein later on, and I do know where this scene comes from, it's essentially where Mark is on a rooftop just staring at Tong doing laundry on another rooftop, and I asked the question, why are you staring at him so intensely? To which Nixie immediately responded with,
because he looks delicious in a different way.
I'm not gonna lie, I immediately just went, I hate you.
And like context-wise, like extra context-wise, that was clearly me referring to like the character's viewpoint on Tong. So like it was like not me sexualizing the character, but the character and the thought point of the character sexualizing the other character. I don't think I would ever sexualize a character as myself. I will just make comments about the characters. And I have clearly done that before in the podcast. I will never forget the Your Sky incident.
That was wild.
It was so bad. That was so bad. The you can spill something else on me. will live rent free in my head forever, just because it came so out of pocket in the middle of us recording, just thinking about that scene, and it was so funny. I'm sorry. It was the thought of the character. I don't know. I do that often. If I'm going to make sexualized jokes, it's often pretending to be that character and what I would say to the other character kind of thing. You know what I'm saying? But never myself to another character. I'm sorry. No. But I love doing that if I'm going to do it as one of the characters because it's so out of pocket. You're like,
Talking about out of pocket though. There is a bullet point on for the first episode that straight up just comes from me. But I was like, that is the face of a man who just got his finger sucked without his consent. It's shock, a little bit of horror, and possibly a little into it? Question mark?
I remember when that happened, I couldn't believe you said that. You, of all people.
But, like, was I wrong?
No. But then that did follow, not long, my comment. I don't know if I'd unbutton my shirt around a vampire. Exposes more neck. But I'm not gonna lie, his stocking's kind of cute. Let me be delusional. Those are two different things, but it was two different scenes. But it still cracks me up because I'm like, I would never expose my neck more if I knew someone was a vampire. I'd be like, let me just
I'd button that top button, the one that
proceeds
chokes
to
you.
cover up neck. Wears a turtleneck. I'm gonna like literally wear a scarf. I don't know. We're gonna wrap
But
it up
no,
even
Tong
more.
was
Though
like,
to be honest, if I was worried about a vampire being around me, I would cover everything. Maybe wear a ski
yeah,
mask, maybe wear gloves, maybe no skin contact. Though at the same time, I feel like it wouldn't matter because I know damn well I had no strength against a vampire. So,
fair enough.
but there's also the other comment, which was the I mean, I don't consent stalking, but his stalking was kind of cute.
I have nothing to say. No comment.
I don't even remember where that fully even like drives from, per se in episode 1. I just know that was a comment that was made.
I don't know. It's been too long.
It has been way too long. That was 3 months ago. So it has been too long. But and there's more we could go into, but having explored the story in the stars, let's shine a light on character constellations where new stars await.
By mapping out character constellations, we chart the growth of our favorite characters, exploring how they shine brighter over time, evolve, and form unique constellations with the characters around them.
I don't know how Tong made it through his life. I don't know
Absolutely
how he
not.
got where he got in life.
No, this boy has zero survival instincts.
2, I have a feeling that he only survived that long because Mark saved him so many times.
Oh, absolutely.
Because what was that man?
No, yeah.
Like I said in the last segment, when he found out there was vampires, man just took off running like they couldn't just chase him back down. I'm like,
Yeah.
you're not getting away. Like, what? I mean, yeah, survival. At least he had enough survival instincts to run. Okay, we at least know he's flight. Okay, in the standpoint of fight, flight, or fawn, he flies. Okay, we got that. We got it. He's not a good fighter. Clearly, not sure the man ever froze. So I guess that works out. But I will say, on the good quality side, man, he was so caring and he was so worried for others.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He was so concerned. To be honest, I think man was down to be killed. I mean, not upset. I mean, not happy with it. But like, I think there was multiple times that he already clocked that he was kind of the cause for a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, I'm kind of the reason for it. And he's like, I don't want anyone else getting hurt.
Yeah.
Just kill me now. Not quite literally, but
that was the vibe. And Mark was like, no.
No.
Simply, no.
But, actually speaking of that, because like that vibe, speaking of that, like, he really cared for other people when in the end, when he was escaping with Mark and he realized from the sounds of it that it was not going to end up in any form of happily ever after. He turned around and was like, Mark didn't have to say anything. And Tong was immediately like, take my life. If you'll end everything, do it. Which is wild considering Mark had not said anything about the fact that it was already a plan that was established if things didn't go its way. Which, honestly, Mark wouldn't have gone through had Tong not pushed it to the happen.
No. And, like, what killed me is, like, they're having this moment and, like, they're both going through a lot of emotions. And, like, they're not really, like, talking to each other because, like, they don't have to, like, talk to, like, realize and, like, recognize the pain each of them are feeling. And then, like, Tong just, like, looks Mark in the eye and just says, I do. Just stabbed me in the heart, actually.
I think it stabbed everyone in the heart.
Like I said before, doesn't help. I was also being laughed at this very moment.
Yeah, I admire Tong's character for that. Not so much for his survival skills.
We all have flaws.
We all do, for sure. His was living. Which I guess good news, he became immortal in the end, so I guess it didn't matter.
I'm just like, technically, at the end, he's not alive anymore. So, flaw fixed?
Yeah.
Question mark?
Though, moving on from him to Mark, he was actually a really well adapted and pretty intelligent. It was interesting though watching Mark go through different emotions and different
Mhm.
he kind of almost readapt to the human
Mhm.
behaviors and emotions after the blood incident where he ended up getting a little bit of Tong's blood, golden blood in his system.
Yeah.
And like, something that actually, having said that, dawned on me that we didn't talk about in the plot element. Talking about like one of the plot elements for him was that supposedly the golden blood is the reason why he had feelings, or it was the excuse Hana had for him to end up falling in love with Tong. And that's crazy. And like there's some things I want to elaborate in terms of how that would even work, and one, why it was presented the way it did, cuz maybe I missed something because we watched it so spaced out. But that can go in the next segment because that's like the world building kind of aspect. But to a certain degree, I take that back. It was just interesting and very fascinating to watch this man like get a chance to fall in love, be happy, be angry, have like actual expressions and like emotions, and then also his senses coming back.
Honestly, just piggybacking off of that, like watching like Mark grow like emotionally and like gain like there's honestly impressive emotional intelligence rather quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Very impressive. And like I think that just like speaks to like Mark's like just like heart and like his like the nature he had as like a human.
Yeah, definitely.
That was wild. But very interesting to watch. And like amazing like self-control and resistance can all things considered.
Oh yeah, he almost killed Tong several times.
Several times just like from like the power lust of the golden blood. Unintentional, of course.
Yeah,
Just on pure instinct.
it was also interesting watching Tong be scared of it and then eventually being like, I've seen you resist so many
Yeah.
times that I know you can do it.
Yeah, you
And
no longer scare
eventually
me.
eventually Mark got to the point where it no longer phased him.
Yeah.
Like, I think it did trigger his eyes or whatever you want to call the vampire thing. But at some point it didn't affect him as much as it did definitely from the beginning, where he
Yeah.
had to be snapped out of it.
Now that like we actually bring it up, like the time that it happened after the whole Mina thing, where like Mark's instincts take over and like Tong breaks him out of it, just being like, hey. And like Tong no, Mark, sorry, just like immediately just like quietly no, it was Tong. Just the way Tong like breaks him out of it is just like just mumbling I'm sorry at him and just like heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. He kept believing it was his fault, and that's like back to what we said
Mhm.
about his character. He cared way too much. I mean, not way too much, but he cared so much about everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Mark honestly just cared about Tong. Like that's the
Which
relationship
is his
dynamic.
existence, so that was fair. I wouldn't have been surprised if Mark had already had feelings for Tong and somehow the golden blood just like essentially was a catalyst for his fall.
Yeah. I feel very similarly. I can get behind that. Like we talked about Tonkla, we talked about Nakan in the plot thing enough.
The only thing that's really left to say about Tongla is like he was really goofy. He was very loyal, though he did have a slip up one time, sort of trusting Nakan, though technically he wasn't wrong to trust Nakan.
Yeah.
Though I don't know, it was still kind of
But like that came from the whole thing of like Tonkla's just like slight like growth of like distrust of
mm-hmm.
like not really trusting Tong and Mark is because of all the secrets and the secrecy that Mark and especially Tong, his best friend, like his entire life was keeping from him.
Yeah,
So like it had he had grounds for that.
I agree. It's not much to say about his character though. We do love that he was so silly. He was also just out of
Hmm.
pocket sometimes.
Yeah.
Also, I feel so bad for him because there's that one scene where he ends up staying at Mark's place.
Hmm.
And it just, even though they didn't show Tongla, It really felt like techno from Thorntype sleeping in the same room as Thorntype when they got a little too intimate, because there was basically an equivalent moment to that, because Mark and Tong got a little too into it in the same facility, the same room practically that Tongla was in.
There was a room divider. Like,
Of
Tonkla
like
made it out.
cloth.
Tonkla made it out a lot better than Techno did. Techno literally got clothes
Fair.
thrown onto him.
Yes, and he woke up because of that. Man had to survive through that one. At least we can choose to believe that Tongla never woke up.
We did learn from the resort that he seems to be a pretty heavy sleeper, so fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed for sure, for his sake. I just wanted to point that out because I thought it was kind of funny.
That's fair. We've journeyed through the story in the stars and character constellations, but now let's explore the cosmos of creation for one last perspective.
Journey with us through the vast expanse of world building. In the cosmos of creation, we explore how creators craft intricate universes that not only enhance stories, but bring them to life in ways we can't forget.
Nixie has a lot to say about this one.
This is gonna lead into the plot hole thing, or not plot hole, things that just logically didn't make sense. And like we've stated before, you can write a story and it not necessarily need to make sense, but we are the type of people where we're like, we like to have some logic behind things. And episode 1 did not have logic, okay? Okay? Because tell me why. Why did this man cut his finger and then immediately all the vampires were triggered? And before you go, because he cut his finger, yeah, but this travel of smell moves nowhere near that of light or sound. I don't care how strong their sense of smells is. Okay, we don't know what floor the banquet was on, the party was on, and what floor he was in the room, but there's absolutely no way that it took like a second or a minute or whatever for that smell to travel through multiple walls and possibly floors to get to these vampires. That makes no sense. And then what made it even worse of a logic is the fact that that is the only time that actually worked. I'm assuming this hotel was humongous. It looked like it from the outside. So tell me why in almost every other scene that exists, where this man gets cut, it only affected those within like a small perimeter compared to that scene. Because, for example, the scene when he got attacked by Mina being controlled by Tongla. Sorry, by what the fuck? Nakan. Why did it take her to deliver back a piece of whatever it was that she cut him with, blood, for Nakan to realize that he was the golden blood? When he clearly was in the same hotel as Tong and Mark. And no one else was affected? Also, no other vampire that could have been in the premise was affected? That the logic did not add up the same way it did in episode 1. And I'm sorry, but I remember going on and on in episode 1 being like, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
How
This is,
in the world
believe it or not,
did they smell that?
the shortened version of this rant. This is short in comparison to Nixie's rant at the moment.
I was like, where's the logic in that? Smell can't move that fast. What in the world? If they can smell that good through that many walls, God, how in the world do they survive day-to-day life? Because people smell, animals smell, everything smells. So I know they can only smell blood. I think that was something that was brought up, possibly. But that's even more so the case. Then why is it
that and roses? Roses were big.
That doesn't
in
make
this one
sense
as well.
either.
Yeah, I don't know.
But like, if that's the case,
maybe that was
though,
just a
my
Mark
point
thing.
still stands, because I would hate to be a woman in this storyline and being on a period. Because how in the world did they smell? Like, how? I'm telling you, how did they smell this man's golden blood? I know the golden blood smell is a lot stronger than regular blood, but it still doesn't add up. Logic ain't lodging in the speed of which smell travels. Okay? And it just threw me off. I was like, what? How? Make sense, please. Because what in the world? Also, why was Nakon the only one to react to that when clearly everyone reacted to the smell?
Yeah. Who knows?
Because, like, also, you would think the smell would be create almost like a what I like to call a smell trail, okay? And
Mm-hmm.
if they could smell it within just like a point 0 seconds like that, then why didn't they find them in point 0 seconds? Okay?
Fair enough.
Because there's no way it would spread out and then they have to find the trail because that's not how that works. It doesn't work that way. Trust me. I like to say that people have smell trails. They're either good or bad, or maybe sometimes it's just so dull it's nothing, but it's still there. And people really have smell trails. I swear, it's a thing. It's a thing. It's gross. It's a thing. It can be gross. It depends on what you smell like, but and that's also then again objective, anyways. But mostly. But I was just like, what? And then there's so much other things that just didn't add up logic wise. Like, I'll be real, the concept of the world, the universe for the story is really cool. It's pretty neat. What doesn't make sense is Donna, like, I know in all stories that are written like this, it's usually just heavily focused on where it takes place. So therefore, anything outside that location doesn't really need to be, make sense.
Yeah.
But if Donna was like the head of the vampires, then was she just the head of the ones in Thailand? Because I don't think she would be the head of all of them. I know that's not a necessary thing to think about, but it's a thought. And then that's the case if when she died, did Mark take that role?
Yeah, he's the heir of that family, remember? From the synopsis?
Yeah, but I didn't think it was necessarily brought up, even in the last episode, to what actually happened to the vampires. Because they almost made it seem like not so much that they were in control now, but more so that they were just taking it upon themselves to make sure all Golden Bloods afterwards, and that, hey, we have a cool like company that helps vampires, live among humans without destroying humans, kind of thing. Because remember, like the little
Mhm.
card that they runs to the guy with like a thing, but that doesn't seem like a ruler thing. That seems more like a company kind of thing, powerful thing, which is very different style.
Yeah, I think they just took over in a different capacity
Probably.
where like it's like no long like they're trying to like rule with like without like the control and more so in hopes of unity. So it's more of like what can we do with like this lab, this company that like we have in order to make that unity as seamless as possible, whether that's protecting the Golden Bloods, with like
Mm-hmm.
the and, like having the little business cards, like making synthetic golden blood to be able
I could see that.
to disperse without actually killing the person that has the golden blood.
Yeah. Also, another thing, out of curiosity, did I misunderstand how you even kill vampires? Because do vampires die naturally of age? If so, the immortal thing is a lie because you're not immortal if you die at all, because that's not how the word immortal works, which has always bothered me in any
We've had
show
this
that ever
discussion
talks about
so
immortality.
much. Just off podcast.
Oh, an odd podcast? Yeah. I'm sorry, but use another word for someone that lives a longer lifespan than a human than immortality, because immortality literally means not mortal. And the word of mortal is the fact that you can die. So if you mean they can still die, then don't use the word immortal, because that's exactly what it means is they can't die. So why are they dying in like 200 years? Because they're not immortal. They just have an extra 2 times lifespan or whatever, however long they live, maybe several thousand years before they die, but they still die. Actually, no. And not just that, if they can die, that still doesn't make sense. Okay? Because immortal is literally impossible death. No possible death at all. Immortals aren't supposed to be able to be killed because they're immortal. Anyways, I digress. That has always bothered me. And that I guess that's one of my I'll die on a hill thing, Because it's just like, that doesn't make sense. Find a different word, personally. Like, I'll still watch a show with immortals in that concept, but it will bother me in the back of my brain. Like, a lot of Chinese ones do this, and that bothers me
A
in a little
lot,
bit of my
yeah.
head, but, like, I overlook it.
Going back slightly, it is also a hill I would be willing to die on. I'm just not as passionately, outwardly vocal about it. Continue.
Oh, you are agreeing with that hill?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
Oh, I didn't realize you ever agreed with that. You never responded to me talking about the immortality thing, and that just doesn't make sense. So I
Because
never
you're
knew if you were
so
actually
passionate
on it.
about it. So I'm just like,
It
uh-huh.
doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. How can a mortal die? That's literally the whole point of being immortal. But anyways, moving back to the story, talking back to the immortality thing and being able to kill vampires. So I still don't understand. Do they actually age into death? But at the same time, maybe not, because that doesn't make sense. Because Thana was getting sick. So therefore, she needed the golden blood to get better. So wouldn't that mean she could die from that sickness? But then on top of that, she was like, I need the golden blood to kill other vampires. And if that's the case, is that the only way to kill other vampires? But then they also say you have to stab them in the heart. But is that because you stab them in the heart or because it had the golden blood in it? Because, like, the little devices they used to stab them was in the heart or was the golden blood themselves. Like, for example, like, the little device they were going to stab her with that they didn't end up stabbing her with had golden blood in it, which was supposed to help dilute, like, her powers and stuff like that, but also kill her. But then, on the other hand, if I remember correctly, what Mark had after getting the golden blood in his system was, I think, like a pair of scissors or something. Like, it wasn't even that same tool that killed her. So therefore, where's the logic that I overlooked? Because, like, it could be there, and I just don't know it.
I have no explanation. I have no clue. Like, the entire show, it's just like, oh, killing a vampire is so hard. But, like, how do you
It's also
actually do
easy.
it? You either have one way of doing it, and that's the only way, or there's multiple options with different routes that you can take. So I don't know.
Well, I guess it doesn't take a regular object to kill him. Because if that's the case, then the vampires probably would have killed. Wait a minute, I'm thinking too hard about this because like the scene in the last episode when they, oh my god, my reaction to them being practically attached to the tree was, oh my god, they crucified them.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
was my literal reaction when I saw the fact that they had their hands nailed
Yeah,
to
it
the
was, like,
tree.
through
And
the
my immediate
wrist.
reaction, yes. But yeah, my immediate reaction seeing this, oh my god, they crucified them.
Very, very valid, you
What
know.
is even the definition of crucifixion?
I think it's nail through the palm, but it's close enough. It may just be that you're, like, pinned.
So it says put someone to death by nailing or binding them to a cross, specifically an ancient punishment. So
Interesting.
honestly, it's really putting them to a cross more so than anything. Which we didn't
I
really
mean,
get
this was
that,
to a
but
tree, but
close
close
enough.
enough.
Close enough. But I was like, damn. But then they would have killed them easily had they could have. So then maybe you really do need to have the golden blood to kill someone. Cause like it made sense that Thana could kill Aunt, what was her name? Aunt
Mhm.
whatever.
Juan.
Aunt Orm's,
Auntie Juan.
because she had golden blood. Yeah, still had golden blood in her, even though she hadn't got Tongs yet. But it also made sense why Mark could kill her because he had just received his golden blood. But were there any other death scenes that I'm not thinking of? Wait a minute.
That just
Did
does that mean
Did Mark not kill other vampires in the process of this, or did he just knock them out the fuck out by twisting their neck and like knocking them to the ground?
what I was just about to say is, like, does that mean that, like, theoretically Mark could have killed her sooner than this because he had
Yeah.
the golden blood in him from multiple instances early on in the
Well,
series?
maybe not. Maybe not. Because remember, it took until he was 21 for it to like almost like, I don't know. It didn't make sense. That's another logic that doesn't
Yeah, that
make
doesn't
sense. Where
make
his
sense.
blood had to be like almost like a ripe, like I think what they describe it like it had to wine. It had to like it had to sit, I guess, for 21 years.
Age like
and then,
wine. Fucking wild.
exactly. That's a wild statement to say. But like that's pretty much what it seemed like it had to do. So maybe the blood he had prior wasn't strong enough to do it. But she's had multiple of it. So I don't know. I don't know. Logic isn't logicking. Feel free to enter this discussion in the chat because we would love more ideas and this input.
The fact that it wasn't just his blood that had these like special properties, it was his tears, it was his sweat, all the bodily fluids.
Others.
Crazy.
Though we really didn't get
Wild.
the others. We did get tears and sweat. Though another logic point, speaking of his tears and sweat, what in the world was going on with Mark? Because I thought for a good while there that him having tried the golden blood was actively possibly turning him into a human, but instead
Yeah, that was wild.
it just gave back his emotions and his senses. But what was up with that?
Mm-hmm.
If that's the case, then was Tharna just so cold-blooded that even with emotions and with senses, she was just a bitch?
Valid question. Valid question.
Because why is it, or maybe because she's never had the golden blood outside of the, age like wine kind of setting. So maybe it didn't have the same effect. Or was it because of the power of love and Mark, because of the little bit of golden blood and him falling in love with Tong that gave that property, all of these things back to him?
I don't know.
Question mark?
Question
And then
mark.
if that's the case, then when Tong got turned into a vampire, why in the world did he not lose his abilities? I know that's not really addressed, so we don't actually know, but it did not seem like he did.
Mm-hmm.
Because he would have lost emotions, and he definitely still loved Mark afterwards. So his emotions were absolutely still there, and he was so caring to everyone. So he didn't lose emotions either. And I know it's technically addressed with they do have emotions per se, because and whatnot, but they're not the same as humans. The connections that humans make with others. So therefore, they don't particularly seems like they care as much. Sure, friendship is fine, companionship thing, but it doesn't seem like they have any urge for romantic other than maybe sexual thing, you know what I mean? Romantic or family kind of things, right? It didn't seem like most of them really did, though they could act like family members. I don't know. That I was kind of confused there too. Maybe I overlooked something there and I was like, am I thinking too hard about this? I'm thinking too hard about this for sure.
We always are.
We always are. And I think anyone who's heard any of our podcasts knows for sure we think too hard about stuff. But that just, I literally thought he was turning into a human only to find out, no, golden blood ? Let's not address that in full detail at all. Because it started with him realizing that he's starting to be able to smell Tong's sweat ? Which was kind of wild. And then him being able to taste the food that Tong was giving him.
Mm-hmm.
And then him smelling the food and the sweat of Tong. And then realizing he had emotions, yada yada. I don't know. It was just, I was so shocked that he, I mean, to be honest, I didn't 100% expect him to become a human or anything like that.
Yeah.
But I did, on the other hand, was it felt weird. Because I was maybe, still vampire with human qualities? ? I don't know. I'm thinking too hard. It was never addressed. But I will say I still did love the story. I liked most aspects.
It was fun.
I say that as more things that did not add up started appearing. They had super speed, but yet did not use it hardly ever. What's up with that? They had super strength, yet hardly ever addressed that. What's up with that? I get that possibility of that strength-wise more so than the speed-wise was effect of the fact that Mark seemed to have extra strength because of the golden blood that he had in his system. But that still doesn't add up to the fact that it seems like they have speed. Also, if they have on command of control of their fangs and their whatever that happens to their eyes, why does it take them ripping those out, basically, to even use these abilities? Because it only ever seemed that they were ever able to use them when they were full vampire mode. That just felt like that was the case.
Quote, whipping them out is insane.
I'm sorry. It just happened to be how I phrased it. But
I get it.
seriously, like, what was up with that?
I don't know.
There's so many things I could so overanalyze about the world building in terms of like how the vampires worked. Way too hard, and I have already. But like I said, going back before I think of more things, I did enjoy it though. Like, don't get me wrong, I don't mind there being plots or things that I overthink about or overanalyze. But so it was still a very enjoyable series. It's kind of like OMG Vampire, our previous satellite for this week, before this main one, which is technically My Golden Blood is the main one versus the other one. And how we had issues with that world building also not making sense.
But that one
But
was
I
just
will
more
say,
campy.
this one, and I will say this one makes way more sense at least than whatever in the world that other one was.
Yeah, this one had more serious vibes to it, for better or for worse.
For you, for worse. For me, for better.
And that's just how it is.
It's okay. As we prepare to leave the stars behind, let's gather the stardust of our experience and share our final reflections on My Golden Blood.
First and foremost, because it didn't fit anywhere else. As an English major, love that at one point in the series that they're studying the Iliad, because I love the Iliad. I pronounced that 2 different ways in 2 seconds.
You sure
2
did.
different sentences. Wild. But that's one of my favorite like classic literature. It's so good. And so like that was very fun for me.
Fair.
But overall, as the series as a whole,
really enjoyed it. I don't watch a lot of airing stuff up until recently, and as having started this podcast kind of forced me into watching more airing stuff. And so it was very enjoyable. I think I have definitely turned my viewpoint on watching airing stuff, because I used to like not like doing that, because I like sitting down and watching things and like being able to hit the next episode and stuff like that. But recently I have completely flipped my attitude towards watching airing stuff and maybe watching too much of it. So also because time has forced me into being an airing person, and which kind of is actually pretty helpful. Much more helpful than I used to think it was. But I kind of really enjoyed it. Part of it for that. It was, even though I personally didn't deep dive into a lot of like the fan commotion and what was going on while watching it, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless. I did see a few things come through in terms of that, like interviews and other things. But having said that, I don't know if that was just our platforms, but I actually didn't see a lot of My Golden Blood surface. It probably was there and we just somehow didn't get the end of it, which is very possible.
Oh,
but
absolutely.
Still really enjoyed the series.
It was all right.
You want to word it like that?
I've talked about this. I'm not a big vampire individual. I'm not.
Which is ironic considering you were the one that wanted to watch it for Gawain.
For Gawain.
That is the literal only reason you wanted to watch it.
And am I not allowed to have that opinion?
No.
No. Rude.
I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. I'm joking.
You're good. I know you are.
I will say I do remember the memes when it first started about how watching Joss and Gawain doesn't look like a romantic BL ship, but instead just like 2 bros.
Yeah.
And honestly, I agree. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Stars Align Dramas and Dreams podcast, where we meet amongst the stars that illuminate the love stories that light up our universe and connect us all.
If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, and share your stardust and thoughts with us. We'd love to hear your comments, favorite moments, or suggestions for what we should explore next.
You can connect with us in the comments or through our socials, as well as our email that are linked in the description. Let's keep the conversation going under the stars.
Until next time, keep dreaming, keep listening, and remember, love always shines brightest in the cosmos.
Bye!